give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LMDtv Finance.
The key to quality and efficiency. Be a jewel. Professionalism is the jewel in the corporate crown.
Refresh Sri Lanka for a civic-minded society in association with 99X. LMD, the voice of business.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. Tonight on the forum, we're zooming in on the business politics nexus. And with us, we have the Secretary General and the CEO of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Buwanekabahu Perera. It's very nice to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Ruwandi.
To start off our conversation tonight, it is no secret that a significant nexus exists between corporates and politicians in Sri Lanka. In your opinion, what are the causes and effects of this?
Ruwandi, when you speak about a nexus, it means a connection between the corporates and the politicians of Sri Lanka. Well, I believe there is something of that sort, but I cannot give any examples. In terms of the question, what you ask about the causes and the effects of that, I think causes are, I would say, mainly about three areas: economic interest, political influence, and regulatory capture. And on the other side, the effects would be obviously corruption, unequal distribution of wealth, lack of accountability, and stifling of innovation. If you want me to elaborate a bit more on these areas, I could do so. Both corporates and politicians have economic interests, and they often find it advantageous to collaborate. By doing that, they seek favorable policies, contracts, and regulations, while politicians may receive financial support or other benefits from these corporations. For the political influence, corporations, especially large ones, if I may say, have significant resources and influence. They have deep pockets, and also they have long tails. They can provide financial contribution to political parties or individual politicians, which can help fund campaigns and gain influence over policy decisions. So it's more of an influence that they exert by extending financial support. Then, with regulatory capture, close relations between these two entities, that is corporates and politicians, can lead to regulatory capture, which means where the regulations and policies are shaped to benefit a specific industries or companies, but not everybody at large. This can result in preferential treatment for unfair competition and limited market access for small businesses. So those are the constraints or the disadvantages that would accrue with this nexus between corporates and politicians. And that would lead to corruption. I mean, what they would seek, the politicians may receive bribes, kickbacks in exchange for favors granted. And also that undermines transparency, accountability, and fair competition. Then obviously unequal distribution of wealth. I need not elaborate on that because it's a favored party and the less favored party does not get benefited by that. Also, such transactions does not have the required accountability. And that is not evident, and people do not see exactly what has taken place. With this, that also stiffens or constrains the innovative aspect or the competition. Because it's directed towards one party or a few parties, and with this political influence, they move forward in the absence of in absence of innovation and competition. So this is what I would like to say in terms of nexus between corporates and politicians and the causes and effects.
There are many forms of business and politics connections whenever these two worlds really collide. What form of connection is the most detrimental to a country? And of course, looking at Sri Lanka, what does the local picture look like?
Ruwandi, actually, if you look by and large, there are three types of such connections that we can talk about. One is where a politician belonging to a family business, which means an existing politician is belonging to a family business. Second thing is a bit different, where a child of a politician is involved in business. The child is not a politician, but his parents or somebody is involved in politics, and the son is doing business. And the third, a person who is involved in business entering politics. All these three has more or less the same influence, but in different capacities and in different dimensions. A politician belonging to a family coming into business could be called as nepotism. And we all know what nepotism is. On the other hand, a child of a politician getting involved in business could lead to a perception of cronyism and unfair competition, which has disadvantages to others who don't have that favored status, but for a few who have that advantage, thriving in the society. And the third one, which we have seen on few occasions, even in Sri Lanka, where people who are engaged in business enter in politics. That what they do is that with that, they bring in certain expertise, but at the same time, they also could take advantage of the political environment that they're working with for their personal gain. So it's a way of managing these three. And I think in any country, we see a combination of any of these, but it all depends how genuine and and also genuineness versus the personal interest of getting into politics.
In your view, can a business politics nexus be good for a country? If so, are there any examples that you can share with us tonight?
Yes, I think I would refrain in mentioning any local examples. Yes, I think there have been instances, especially in the Far Eastern countries, in Korea, maybe in China, Vietnam, and all those places. I cannot remember the exact names, of course, but such combination directed positively for the benefit of the country, it has moved forward. And that it all depends how it is being controlled, how transparent it is, and how accountable it is. I think, if I may take an example, South Korea, I think the government has given patronage to certain companies, initial seed capital and also private companies, and supported them. And later on, there have been international giants. Samsung is a good example of that, I believe.
Buwaneka, what is Sri Lanka's corporate fraternity doing in the light of calls for system change and an end to political patronage by business people?
I think corporate fraternity in their own way, within their own purview, it's within their own capacities, they're doing bits and pieces. But I think if all are doing it in one direction with a cohesive manner, this country could lead to a better future. The areas in which that they could look either individually or collectively is one thing, is the most important thing is promoting ethical business practices. And that has to be a genuine thing. Each company, they should demonstrate, they should articulate, and also walk the talk of what they're doing and show that they are conducting businesses in a transparent, accountable, in a manner of clear accountability and committed to fair competition. The other thing is they should engage in advocacy and lobbying for system reforms. This can include supporting initiatives for campaign, finance reforms, lobbying for stronger anti-corruption measures, and promoting the independence of regulatory institutions. If the regulatory institutions are not independent, you will not get a good results in terms of regulation. And if you do not have good anti-corruption laws, the purpose is not fulfilled. We also need, to some extent, support civil society initiatives that will bring about good awareness, encourage people to voice their opinions and free expression of their thoughts. Then also, apart from company looking at their own interests, economic interests, they need to show and strengthen corporate social responsibility, which we abbreviate it as CSR. Business can focus on meaningful initiatives and go beyond more compliance and address social and environmental concerns. That will take a long way for companies to help build more inclusive and equitable society. Of course, there also need to be some level of transparency between businesses, among businesses, of what they do, how they do it, and also in terms of the products, what they are servicing and all. Then there's one thing which I would like to say, but also would hold it back to some extent. That is whether companies should endorse responsible political candidates to take up positions in the government and see that there is a fair mechanism of promoting legislation and controls.
Buwanek, I don't want to probe too much into this, but are there any examples that you can share in terms of corporates endorsing good politicians?
We are responsible of promoting political candidates for, good example is Singapore. Yeah, in Singapore, there is a different mechanism compared to many other countries. They promote educated people who have an unblemished track record, who have no vested interests, and who could take up governance, and who are transparent in their actions, and who have a clear interest of contributing back to the country. And I think Singapore is a good example. And also, I think they are, for the positions and the responsibilities that they take, they're also adequately remunerated so that they don't deviate from the prime objective of serving that position.
It's time to take a short break, but we'll soon come back to talk more about the business and politics nexus.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging media.
You're mobile, and so are we.
Gets me going.
Grab the Lite 87 app at the Apple App Store or Google Play now.
87.8 and 87.6 island-wide. Lite 87.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking to the Secretary General and the CEO of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Buwanekabahu Perera. How can Sri Lanka's business chambers help really educate business people and companies on ethical dimensions?
Well, if I take my chamber, or the chamber that I'm serving, which is the oldest chamber with 184 years of existence, have gone through many generations. We have done many things and we continue to do many things. We have set up 20 business councils, which have partnered with other countries to promote trade. We also have business associations for specific industries where the local participants, they look into their requirements, the grievances which have been addressed at those committee meetings, and where the chamber takes it up with the respective regulatory authorities acting as a conduit between the private sector and the government regulators. And over the last few years, to demonstrate that, we have also set up, or we have initiated, a competition to select the best corporate citizen sustainable award, which encompasses most of these things to identify companies covering many criteria, which includes many criteria for sustainability, which refers to people, profit, and planet. And that has few other areas like employment, employee, customers, communication, environment, finance, and governance. We also have trade fairs. We promote trade delegations to other countries, as well as entertain trade delegations to our country, to our business councils. Then we also have seminars. We do have a very strong economic intelligence unit, which do a fair amount of research. We participate with the government in relation to many policy issues and give our proposals. Our proposals are not exclusively from us, but what we do is we speak to our members, gather information from them, and then we collate everything and look at a proper document to be present to the government, covering all the interest of all members. That helps us to communicate the requirements of the private sector and channel that message to the government. At the same time, when there are any grievances of various policies which are being promoted by the government, to examine them, evaluate them, review them, and go back to the government and say that we would like certain things to be redressed for the best interest of the public sector.
And Buwaneka, what is the business community's perspective on shaping effective policies for Sri Lanka's economic progress?
I think what the business community expect for sustainable economic growth, and also in expectation of a contribution from the government for the economic growth. I think, first of all, we need to have economic stability and conducive business environment. If that is made sure, I think most of the other things would fall into place. And we also need to have proper infrastructure development. That is, business community often advocates for policies that prioritize infrastructure development, including transportation, network, power supply, telecommunications, and digital infrastructure. Then, most often, which the public sector make a big hue and cry, is to have proper regulatory reforms and of ease of doing business. I think we have gone few steps in the ranking in relation to other countries where ease of doing business is concerned. We need to have regulatory reforms to streamline bureaucracy, reduce red tape, and enhance the areas of doing business, simplifying procedures, improving administrative efficiency, and reducing regulatory burden, which can foster entrepreneurship, attract investment, and as well as reducing regulatory burdens. Then, needless to say, we have entered into many investment promotion and trade facilitations with other countries. Currently, the Chamber is also involved in formulating a trade agreement with Thailand. Such things needs to be continued, developed, and modified according to the needs of the time. One of the most important things while we do all that, we need to have proper skill development and education. If we do not have that being done, we will not have the most important ingredient for any company, any business is the human resources. Of course, in the recent past, we have heard through the media that some of our the brain drain from Sri Lanka going to other countries. But still, even with the remaining, we need to have a proper education system, identify gaps where the skills are required, and have vocational training for such areas where we have a deficiency. Also, innovation and technology adoption is very important. Embracing innovation, promoting research and development on that, and encouraging technology adoption are often seen as essential drivers of economic progress. In this, the business community may advocate for policies that incentivize innovation, support startups and SMEs, and facilitate access to technology and digital infrastructure. That's the way forward. When all the other countries are going for digital infrastructure, I think we also need to move in that direction. We see certain things which have been developed, but I think we are still slow in that, and we need to expedite and accelerate.
Buwaneka, my next question to you revolves around LMD's campaign, Refresh Sri Lanka, through which we're trying to really encourage a civic-minded society. In your opinion, where does civic-mindedness really come in or fit in when we look at ending political patronage by business people in Sri Lanka?
Ruwandi, I think Refresh Sri Lanka is a nice campaign, a title for our country to move forward. It's a very, very timely slogan. In promoting it, there are many things which would come into this slogan, I think. One is promoting ethical conduct. Second is demanding for transparency and accountability. I'll elaborate a bit more if time permits. And third is empowering civil society, promoting good governance, then building a sense of civic duty by the people, and also shaping public opinion and discourse. If I have time, I would like to stress a bit on each of those. Ruwandini?
I think we would love to hear you elaborate on the transparency aspect that we should bring in.
Transparency and accountability is something which is paramount, and I would say that would take one of the first slot in the wish list of all civic loving people in this country, and also every business community. Civic-minded individuals actively demand for transparency and accountability from both politicians and business people. So it's not one-sided. It has to come from both politicians as well as the business community, both. That is, by and large, the private sector. They seek access to information, support investigative journalism. That is important. It's not simple journalism, but investigative journalism, so that the proper message is being spelled out to educate the people of the current status quo on some important matters. And the journalists also have an ethical responsibility of disclosing or putting out the correct information without being biased to any individual, any political party, or any business. And participate in movements that advocate for openness and fairness. By holding business people accountable for their actions and exposing instances of political patronage, civil-mindedness help create public pressure to end such practices. I think that is very important. All what happens is based on information, and that information should be open, transparent, and also that information should be accountable, not in financial terms, but of course the authenticity of that information.
Before we end our conversation tonight, any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
If I are to conclude the conversation, I would like to emphasize the importance of active citizenship and civic engagement in shaping a better future. When we say better future, it's not only for us, for our children, and for many generations to come. Each individual has the power to make a positive impact in their community and society at large. So we all have a responsibility. It's not one or two individuals, but I think all of us have that responsibility. Then, by staying informed, participating in meaningful discussions, and taking actions aligned with the ethical principles and the collective welfare, we can collectively work towards a more inclusive, transparency, and accountable society. And I think with this, let's foster a culture of empathy, respect, and collaboration, seeking common ground and understanding across diverse perspectives. By coming together, we can address challenges, promote social justice, and build a more sustainable and equitable world with good expectations for a better future for our country.
We've been talking to the Secretary General and the CEO of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Buwanekabahu Perera. It was very nice having you on the show, sir.
Thank you, Randina. It was a pleasure for me also to speak to you and the opportunity given to me.
And to all our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.